Welcome to the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Serenitas, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons. John, it got a little hairy there at the end, but the Patriots prevailed, beating the New Orleans Saints 25-19.
Yeah, John, weird stuff seems to happen in New Orleans, both on and off the field, and that kind of continued today because Patriots went. And by the way, important win for the Patriots. You're going to hear that. But a weird game kind of itself. Like you had these big plays. I think some really bad officiating on both sides, but especially against the Patriots in this one. But you had these big plays. You had, opportunity to score more points than you did. The defense played poorly for long stretches of this game, but then had two huge stops. It was just kind of one of those games that was all over the place today. But as I said, I think a win that is just as significant as last Sunday night against Buffalo. And I know that sounds silly on the surface, but the reason I say that is any team can have one good win, right? You go into Buffalo, you beat a great team, and you feel great about yourself. And how many times do you see teams follow that up by laying an egg the next week or lose? I mean, we've seen it with the Patriots, right? Just look at the last few years. 2021, they win the Monday night in Buffalo, lose a couple games out of the bye week, right? Last year, they win week 1 in Cincinnati, lose a bunch of games after that. So it wasn't pretty. It was kind of a weird game. But I do think when we talk about their development, this team this season, it's a win that's arguably just as important as last week because they showed they can build on success.
Yeah, and before we continue the conversation here, I do want to remind folks out there that we know you have plenty of post-game options, but give us a shot as well. Feel free to join the conversation. We're coming to you live on X, Facebook, Twitch, and our YouTube page. And we already have a comment right out of the gate. Our good friend Willem jumps in from Connecticut. We did it. I had to watch the Steelers game. Yeah, that was a real barn burner. That's still going on right now. Somehow that's the bonus coverage game, by the way. I mean, you've got a
big bonus.
Right. Yeah, that's the bonus game. I mean, Fox is carrying the Dallas Carolina game. Otherwise, you'd think they'd go to that one. But, yeah, not much of a bonus there. But, Willem, thanks for checking in. Yep, they did do it indeed. And, John, I think you bring up such a good point in that these are the kind of games you need to win as you develop into a winning program, right? These games that you're not running the football well. You can't really get into your 4-minute offense. Your defense has struggled. Coming into this game, we talked about the fact that this skill group could give them some problems, and they did. Spencer Rattler had a big game. Their receivers, specifically Chris Olave, who went over 100 yards. He had a big game. We knew that was going to be a problem, and that proved to be the case. We also knew that this is a team that would be patient in terms of running the football and committing to the running game. Kellen Moore did do that. But from the Patriots' perspective, big first half, Drake May throws the 3 touchdown passes. But in the second half, their inability to run the football really reared its ugly head. And in a lot of ways, it almost cost them this football game.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Saints had a chance with the ball to take the lead late in this game, I thought was kind of crazy because the Patriots, I thought their defense played really poorly in the first half. And then in the second half, they tightened up. They gave up the 1 field goal, but they forced a couple punts. They also forced the fumble at midfield. And offensively, I mean, you went into halftime with 22 points. You were rolling. You come out of halftime. You get the double score, right? Touchdown in the first half, then the field goal to start the second half. You're up 25-16, 2-score game technically. And it felt like after that, I mean, you had a 3-and-out, then a 6-play drive that was a punt, then another 6-play drive that was a punt. So you punted on your next 3 drives, and you really couldn't do anything. And look, some of it is I think they called too many first down runs, which I know a lot of people freak out about all the time on social media, but I think they did go a little overboard with that today. And also, it felt like the interior of their offensive line got smoked in the run game in this game.
They struggled mightily in the run game.
Mike Onwenu did not have a good game.
Not to cut you off. You saw it at the end of the game. They're in 21 personnel, Westovers in the game, and Justin Reed has a run-through and blows up the play for a 4-yard loss. And that right there just goes to show you that should never happen when you have a fullback or a lead blocker in the game in the backfield, and you try to run a simple lead play to start to bleed the clock, and you get a run through on the backside. It's indicative of a lot of the problems I think that they're having right now up front in the run game. For all the good things that this group is doing in pass pro, they're giving it all right back by just flat out being awful when it comes to the run game.
And I think we saw late in that game when the Patriots are trying to kill clock, they had to throw the ball to do it. And credit to the May to Diggs connection on that first down they had on that final drive, and then that terrific throw and catch from May to Booty along the sideline. Glad the refs kind of got that right and let the clock run down. But they were having to throw the ball in order to run clock down, which you just like that was you can't have that. Like that's one of those things long term they're going to have to get better at. And by the way, speaking of May, John, I think this might have been his best game as a Patriot. And part of it is, and we can get into this, those Saints defensive backs looked clueless to me in this game. I mean, I'm trying to be nice about it, but
They're
play after
young.
play.
I mean, Riley, Sanker are rookies. They're young back there.
Yeah. Like, and then there was even,
And it showed.
arguably the two biggest pass plays of the game got called back on penalty, but it was like, guys were open. Like it's just, I thought Drake May was terrific today. The run game they are going to have to get better at because this is a game they should have won by at least 10, if not 14 points. And I think a lot of it goes down to they couldn't run the ball at all in this game.
Good friend of the show, Lauren Gaudette checks in. Thanks for checking in, Lauren. I was thinking in the second half of where's the check down of the quick throws, etc. Drake took a lot of long to medium shots that could have been picked off in the second and third and long situations in the fourth quarter. I get what you're saying there, Lauren, but coming into this game, this is one of the few games that for me, I wanted them to be aggressive in the passing game. I stressed on in all my previews because I felt that when you looked at the underlying numbers and you watched the film, I mean, this secondary gives up a lot of big plays. They're constantly out of position. They're not very well coached. I cannot believe that they don't play more zone than they do. So I thought there was a lot of opportunity there to make big plays in the passing game, and clearly so did McDaniels because that was the focal point today. But, again, I get what Lauren's trying to say, John. I think in the second half, maybe get the ball out a little quicker, take a little bit of pressure off of him, maybe not have him hold the ball as long where he risks getting hit. But, again, this goes back to our earlier point, and Lauren, thanks for checking in. We appreciate it. But this goes back to our earlier point, John, about their inability to run the football. And it's easy to look at their backs and say, okay, is it the backs? Is it the offensive line? In my opinion, it's all the offensive line. They rushed for 73 yards today. Drake May was their leading rusher. That's inexcusable. That's not good enough. The bottom line is the offensive line needs to be better. When you're in those 4-minute situations, if you're going to become the team that we think they could become, you've got to be able to run the football in those 4-minute situations at the end of games. They can't do it. And to your point, they had to throw to close out the game, which is not the way you want to operate. So, again, is it the backs? Is it the offensive line? For me, when it comes to run blocking, it always starts up front. What are you doing schematically? Are they executing? And then it goes to the backfield. Your offensive line right now in the run game, they've been awful all year, and it reared its ugly head today.
Yeah, and I think like you look at the backs, like Stevenson is so focused on not fumbling, he's not breaking any tackles.
No.
And then Henderson's
he's too big a back to be running the way he is. He is wussy-footing it right now in a big way.
Yeah, and Henderson, I think, is getting there, but I just don't think he's there yet. And then you look at, like, to me, the key sequence that kind of proves what you're saying. I mean, with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter on that first drive, you have 2nd and goal at the 1. You hand it to a big back in Stevenson, but 2 guys on the O-line miss their blocks. You can't get in. Then you have a delay of game, which is just a systematic failure. And then you throw a screen pass on 3rd and goal from the 9, which I didn't love that call, but they're being safe. But you only get 3 yards. You kick a field goal after having 2nd and goal at the 1. And really, I mean, it was 1st and goal, what, at the 2? You're 1st and goal at the 2.
And in that situation, to your point, look, I said on X, maybe they should have thrown, and some guy jumps down my throat. What are you talking about? They only needed a yard. Like, I don't know, dude. I've been around the game over 30 years, okay? I want to run the ball there too. Thanks for pointing out the obvious. No shit, Sherlock. But at the end of the day, if you're going to run it there, don't go heavy. Maybe you spread them out, get into 11, get into 12, widen your splits, and try to run the ball that way if you can, either under center or out of gun. One of the things that drives me nuts about the NFL, John, and again, you know this, I love to run the football. It's what I've done in my coaching career. It's what I believe in. All of that being said, in that situation, get out of 23 personnel. It's not working. You're packing the box. They're big inside. Former Patriot Devon Gottschall, he actually played pretty well for them today. He's in there. They've got some beef in there. You're not getting the push you want from your offensive line. So why not get into 11 or 12, widen those splits, and either run the football inside that way or try to throw some kind of a perimeter screen right now where they can lean in and score.
Yeah.
But the fact that they stayed in 23 and tried to pound it, I didn't get that with the way they're struggling up front.
And they didn't have, I mean, Travion Henderson's longest run was a 7-yarder. Stevenson longest run was a 7-yarder. So none of their running backs even really got into the second and third level of the defense in this game. Like that, I mean, that's a problem. You're gonna you do that, you're not going to be able to run the ball successfully. So it's just like, yeah, that's something that, again, if they had been able to run the ball better, I mean, we talked about that goal line situation, but even that when they had the turnover on downs where Bradbury snapped it under May's legs, like before you have 3rd and 7, you call a draw play. Mike Onwenu you can debate, like, I didn't love the draw play there. I would have rather just a regular inside zone play or something like that. But even still, Mike Onwenu gets smoked and Stevenson falls down. So then it's 4th and 7 instead of 4th and 3 or 4th and 2. If you had maybe just called a regular run play and the guys had done their jobs, and then you have a snap below May's legs. Because, like watching this game, I thought to myself, if the Patriots didn't have Drake May today, they would have lost, and they might have lost by 7 to 10 points because they couldn't run the ball, and they pass protected really well, but defensively they struggled a lot early. I mean, this game to me was a lot about Drake May, the pass protection, and the receivers. I thought played really, really well today, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, we're going to get to the defense in a sec. Yeah. I do want to say with the offensive theme here, Drake May on the day, 18 of 26, 261 yards. He, of course, did throw the 3 touchdown passes in the first half. Passer rating of 140.1. Second half, not as productive as opposed to last week where he was more productive in the second half. But nonetheless, the kid played great. Another solid performance for him. You mentioned the receivers. Kayshon Boutte comes back home in essence. Played at LSU, 5 catches, 93 yards, 2 touchdown catches. He is becoming a legit number 2 receiver in this offense. And I tweeted this out at the end of the game. I'm so glad, John, that they stuck with this kid. I'm so glad they stuck with him through some tough times the last 2 years, because now you're starting to reap the benefits of sticking by him. You're starting to see increased production. This is the player that I thought they could be getting when they drafted him 3 years ago. This is the player that I thought they could be getting if they stuck with him, and he got out of his own head. We saw occasional flashes of the potential the last couple of years, but now he's put it all together. He's a legit number 2 receiver, in my opinion. He can play the Z or the F. He's easily one of your 3 best receivers. But I think on top of all of that, he has this clutch gene, right? He's becoming a reliable target for his quarterback in clutch situations and big moments, and he's coming up big. You saw it last week. You saw it again today. I look, honestly, I know that in this business we have to call it down the middle, but I couldn't be happier for the dude. He's been through a lot here. Looks like he's persevered it, and he is finally paying off for the Patriots in terms of their patience.
Yeah, and you remember when you and I were down at training camp, they had Kayshon Boutte as one of their top 2 receivers in 12 personnel, and we talked then about how, hey, this is a sign they really like this guy, right? Because that's just your 2 best guys, and they had him out there. And what Kayshon Boutte's done this year, especially today and in that first game against the Raiders, he's looked like the guy that was one of the best freshman receivers in the country at LSU in 2020.
At a time when he was projecting as a potential first-round pick after his second year at LSU.
And he had the injury issues, and he had some immaturity issues too, right? Problems his rookie year remember, and we don't need to relitigate the whole thing, but I remember talking to you in the spring, and I sat here and said, geez, I wonder if this guy gets it, right? Is he going to be an actual pro? And to his credit, he has totally turned things around. He looks great right now. And your point about the key situations, whether it was that great throw and catch against Miami for the touchdown, the big catches he had today, including that last one that sealed the game, which was a great throw by May, but a great read by Kayshon Boutte to see it back shoulder, catch it, get his feet down. So, yeah, and Demario Douglas, I mean, he had a 61-yard touchdown catch wiped off the board on a phantom OPI call, and he still had 3 catches.
Awful, by the way. Oh. This crew was complete dog shit. They were awful. Awful.
Yeah, that was one of the worst officiated games I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, we could spend 15 minutes just on that. But even still, Douglas had 3 catches for 71 yards in a touchdown, right? And like it just felt like and Diggs had key catches for first downs. Like, it felt like when they made plays, they were key plays in this game. So I thought the receivers were really good. They got helped out by the fact that the Saints defensive backs might be the worst group the Patriots see all
Oh
year
yeah.
back there.
Yeah, like I
But
said, they're young back there. They've got some
yeah,
talent, but they're young, and it showed.
yeah, 100%. And I would also add too. So
I
you
mean,
had the
not to cut you off, John. On Douglas's first touchdown, that was a 2-man route. The
yeah.
Patriots max protected.
That was a great route by Douglas too, because he
Yeah,
put
it
his foot in
was.
the ground.
Yeah.
He put his foot down and made it seem like he was running that fade to corner, and he planted, cut in, and the Saints safety was totally turned around. That was a
Yeah.
great throw, great protection.
That is a classic McDaniels 2-man concept. The deep over with the poco back to the post.
Yeah.
That's vintage McDaniels.
He had the Saints safety totally fooled. And I just want to add too, you had in the second to last drive before the Patriots punted, you had the huge catch by Diggs that was called back on OPI, and then the one to Mac Hollins, which was dropped, that could have been DPI. I bring those up because those two throws were fantastic, and they didn't count. But those were like that Diggs throw might have been the actual best throw he made all day. And the Hollins throw was really good too. It's just, again, those won't show up on the stat sheet. He throws 261 yards. Realistically, it should have been well over 300, with that Diggs catch. But again, I thought those two throws were terrific. I thought the touchdown throw to Kayshon Boutte in the first half was a great, great throw. As on that first one, the 25-yarder, that was a terrific throw and catch, and Boutte fought for that as well. So again, it's funny. They couldn't run the ball at all, couldn't do anything right there, but it felt like everything they did in the pass game, they did a good job. I mean, it wasn't 100% perfect, but it felt like pretty much everything they did in the pass game, they did a good job.
They did. And again, the pass pro was good.
Yeah.
You mentioned May's accuracy. It was on point. The receivers had a good game. Comes back to, again, when we dissect this offensively, it's going to come back to the running game and their inability to run the football. And remember, one of the things that we talked about when they hired Mike Vrabel was how he was going to want to play, his style of play, that physical style of play where they lean on people, especially when they're playing with the lead. They didn't do that today. This was an opportunity for them to do it. They're going to need to do it moving forward, though. They've got to figure it out with this run game, whether it's schematic. All right, what do we do? What are we good at? The thing with coaching the run game is, John, you've got to find the things you're good at and lean on those things. And find those 4 or 5 plays that you can execute consistently, and that becomes the bulk of your running game. And then you can add to it once you get into a groove and you're more consistently running the football, you can add to it from there. But that's a big key for them. They have got to find those 4 or 5 running plays that they can hang their hat on. They certainly didn't have that today. You are watching the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Sirenitas. As always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons. Patriots beat the New Orleans Saints this afternoon 25-19 to improve to 4-2 on the season. They also, in the process, match their total win season total, however you want to put it, from the last 2 years. Of course, back-to-back years of going 4-13. Well, they matched that this year. Did you think that they would match their win total from the past 2 seasons by Columbus Day weekend?
So I did. I didn't think they would do it this way. And what I mean is, I thought they would lose to the Raiders. I thought they would beat Miami. I thought Pittsburgh might be too much for them, but I thought they were going to flip it and they were going to maybe, lose to the Bills and beat the Steelers, something like that. And instead they lose a game to the Steelers that I think, obviously 5 turnovers, right? In hindsight, whatever, they could have won. But yeah, I mean, 4-2. And you and I talked about this last week. If Vrabel's going to be the coach we think he is, and if May's going to be the player we think he is, this stretch of games here, with the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, you should win at least 2 out of those 3 games, if not all 3. And they've won the first one here, which is good. But we should be sitting here talking about them being at least 5-3, maybe 6-2 after 8 games. If, again, they're going to be the team that we thought, that they could be all along. Because the Pittsburgh game, obviously that was a black mark on what they're trying to build there. The Raiders game, I don't think we're ready yet. But they go on the road, win in Miami. They have a really good, convincing win against Carolina. Great road win against Buffalo. Follow it up here with this. So I guess I'm not surprised, John, that they did it. Maybe it just happened a little bit different than the exact way I expected it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. And again, we talked about this ad nauseum throughout the offseason. The schedule was the key. It laid out for them. And I always tell people to be cautious with the schedule because it was last year's teams. Okay. Just because they were bad last year, this is a quick turnaround league. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be bad this year, but the, that has not been the case so far. That their schedule is an added bonus for them. It is helping them. They've gotten to this point partly because they're playing much better than they have at any point in the last 2 years, but also they're playing opponents or teams that they're better than. Obviously, they fortified the roster. They got better. They got more experience at the head coaching position, and that's proved to pay dividends so far. But I can't say I'm surprised. No one should be surprised that through 6 games they're 2-4. I think it would have been more of a 4-2 rather than 2-4. I think it would have been more of a surprise if they were 2-4. That's what I was trying to say, or even 3-3 than 4-2. So it's not a surprise to me that they've matched their win total from the previous 2 years. I think obviously moving forward now, you got to keep it going. They did dodge a couple of bullets today from an injury standpoint. Harold Landry, that did not look good early.
Yeah.
Thought they were going to lose him. Marcus Jones later on. But they survived. Those guys appear to be healthy. They appear to be fine. They're going to move forward without him. Let's talk about the defense because, in my opinion, John, yeah, you only give up 19 points, which you'll take. In this league, if you give up 21 or less, you'll take. But they did not play well. And that, to me, is concerning, especially the secondary. Christian Gonzalez, he was a limited participant all week, questionable as to whether or not he was going to play today. He ends up playing. He didn't have his best game. I didn't think he played well. I thought he struggled at times. Carlton Davis was okay. They were missing Jalen Hawkins, and I think it showed at times, especially with the amount that New Orleans attacked them inside the hashes. But overall, yeah, you gave up 19 points, but this defense did not play well. I mean, I believe they only had they had 2 sacks on the day.
Only forced 1 punt, right? Yeah.
Right. Only forced 1 punt. They did not play well. So in a lot of ways, this is a misleading game. The 19 points would tell you, all right, they probably played pretty well if you didn't watch the game.
Yeah.
But they didn't play well, in my opinion. The 19 points, that's not telling the whole story.
Yeah, and I think it came down to they had a couple stops in the red zone, which is a good thing. But other than that,
but that, by the way, is arguably the worst red zone offense in the league statistically. So,
and up until the red zone, the Saints did whatever they want. I mean, you look at the first play of the game was that 50-yard pass where somehow Patriots run a corner blitz and Kyle Duggar gets isolated on Chris Olave. I don't know what you're doing.
Why are you running a corner blitz there to open the game?
To open the game, and then of all people, Kyle Duggar, love you, mean it, appreciate you, but not a guy you want deep in pass coverage against Chris Olave at all, right? So that made no sense to me.
That was bad coaching.
That was
which I want to get to because the coaching was a little shady today, but continue.
Yeah, so you have that, right? And then the next drive, Saints only go 43 yards, but they run 10 plays, another where it just felt like whenever they needed something, they got it. So they get a field goal there. And then on the Saints touchdown drive, Patriots score a touchdown. You go up 14-6. That could have been a spot where if you get a punt there and you score again, you might blow them out. Like the game could turn there. Instead, 11-play, 60-yard drive, and there's chunk plays in there. Then they give up the touchdown run, and then of course the Saints get another field goal late on. And here's the thing: Saints ran 51 plays today. They were only 3 of 9 on third down, which isn't terrible, but if you think about it, they only faced 9 third downs. I mean, they were converting a lot on first and second down in this game. I mean, again, Patriots only gave up 3 points in the second half, so I don't want to totally crush them, but you gave up 16 in the first half, and at times it kind of looked easy for the Saints as well. It wasn't until, to me, finally the Patriots forced that punt. I think it was late in the third quarter. Then they give up another field goal drive. Then they forced the fumble, and things were kind of okay and they did force that final punt. So it felt like they tightened up as the second half progressed. But in the first half, I mean, very little resistance up until you got into the high red zone.
No, and that's just it. Again, it's frustrating because it's the coach in me that's sitting here saying, all right, they didn't play well on defense. You bring up a good point. They only gave up 3 points in the second half, which is important. And when they needed to tighten up and get a stop, they got it. But they've got to play better than that. New Orleans had him on a yo-yo throughout the first half. And credit to Kellen Moore. I thought he did a really nice job of balancing up his run game and his pass game, and he kept them off balance. But all of that being said, if this team is going to be as good as we think they're going to be, they've got to play much better defensively than this, especially early in games. If you notice, they tend to struggle defensively out of the gate. They have not played well in the first half, really all year defensively. They tend to play their best in the second half, which that's what good teams do. You want your defense to rise to the occasion and finish games. But I still think they need to play better early. They need to get into a groove early on defense.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back in my mind.
Carolina goes down and scores on them 2 weeks ago on their opening possession.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like week 1, the Raiders went right down and scored an easy touchdown on the first drive. Yeah. Miami, what they scored? 2 touchdowns in the second quarter on easy drives. So late first quarter, early second quarter. You mentioned like Pittsburgh scored 2 touchdowns pretty easily in the first half, and then the defense totally locked them down after that. Carolina, same thing, scored a touchdown, then got locked down today. So it has been an interesting thing where it feels like the first 3 drives for the Patriots defense have been really shaky in their games this year. And then after that, especially in the second half of these games, they've been pretty good. But it just feels like they've been shaky early on to start these games. And it's something that they're going to have to address. Because I think, too, if they were playing and look, I think Spencer Rattler's a decent young QB. The Saints have some good players. But if they were playing a better offense today, they would have given up 35 points, especially the way they started that game. I mean, part of it is, they got better, but also, like you mentioned it, Saints have a bad red zone offense. If a couple of those field goals are touchdowns, I mean, we're talking about 30 points on the board.
I asked a couple of players in the locker room a couple of weeks ago why they were getting off to slow starts on defense and why teams weren't having a problem scoring on them early in games. And a couple of the responses I got were interesting, one of which was, well, typically offenses script their first 15, and if they script them a certain way to attack what we're doing, if they're putting in stuff that we haven't seen in those first 15, they're having success on those plays, which led me to think, well, if that's the case, then they need to do a deep dive defensively, and it's hard to do when you're preparing a week to week for an opponent. Plus, their bye is late. It's week 14, so they're not really going to have that time to sit down and really look at themselves. It's all right. This is what we're doing well. This isn't what we're doing well. But if that is the case, then Vrabel and his defensive staff need to figure out a way to where maybe they're not as predictable defensively. Maybe they're not in certain fronts or covers on certain downs early to where teams say, okay, yep, we've seen this on film. This is what we're going to put in to combat it. This is how we're going to attack them. And then they execute it. So, again, it's concerning because to your point, John, if you're playing a good offense, a poor first half means you're going into the room trailing, and now you may not be able to come back and win the game, depending on what the score is at halftime. So I think it's one of those things where they need to play better defensively in the first half of games. It's great that they're playing well in the fourth quarter when you need to play well defensively, but I think if they get out of the gate a little stronger and don't fall behind, I think that's huge. Ken Matthias checks in, the mighty Ken Matthias. What did you guys think of the PI call when May went deep to Diggs on the sideline and he caught it? I thought it was bullshit. I thought it was ticky-tack. I thought it was indicative of the kind of day that this crew had today.
Yeah, I actually thought the illegal shift that they called on Stevenson was worse because, look, I know technically he stood up, he went down, he didn't move spots. Like, he stayed in the same, like.
It was a really bad call that kind of went under the radar.
And by the way, Patriots had a first down. Yeah, Patriots had a first down on a Mac Hollins catch and run on that play. Really nice play by Mac Hollins. And it gets wiped off, and then they have the Diggs penalty, then they have another penalty, and then they end up punting. Like, if they don't call that on Stevenson, Patriots might have run the clock out just right there or scored more points and won comfortably. And, like, the Diggs call, look, Diggs did have his hand on him. They were fighting. It was a ticky-tack call. I thought the Stevenson one was worse because, again, I know he wasn't standing there fully set like a statue, but he didn't move places. He didn't shift over to the other side. He didn't go in motion. Like, are you really going to call that there? And how about, too, they almost screwed up.
And he's not moving forward.
And he wasn't moving forward either. Right.
Which is the most important part of the rule.
And then Mac Hollins, that could have and should have been DPI on that deep throw right after, which would have given his arm was hooked. Like, if you're going to, and here's my thing, if you're going to make that call on Diggs, then you got to make that call on the Mac Hollins play too. If you let the Diggs one go, then I can see you letting the Mac Hollins one go. But that's one of those are very similar type plays. If you're going to make the Diggs call, you have to make the Mac Hollins call. I thought that was a bad moment for the refs. I also thought, and Mike Vrabel did a really good job challenging that Kayshon Boutte was inbounds on that final catch. Great challenge by him. But the refs almost messed that up big time, too. It took them a long time to get the play clock situation right. They got that fumble call wrong earlier that Mike Vrabel also had to challenge. And we can get into the Demario Douglas touchdown that was wiped off the board. And it was you and I hate to complain about officials on this program because we've coached. We know officiating is a hard job, and we know it's extremely rare for officials to actually swing a game. It's always about the teams and what they can do better. But that crew today, it was as bad as the Auburn-Georgia game last night. I mean, that was not a good day for the referees today.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Penalties continue to be a problem, though.
Yeah.
Ken's point, and Ken asked, how can the team minimize the penalties? They had at least 10 in this game. 11 for 65 today. Now, New Orleans had 8 for 67, but again, 11 penalties, John.
Not the first time.
No, they've been double digits in penalties, I think, at least in 3 games this year, counting this one. I mean, it's got to get better here. They've got to play more discipline. They're getting away with it right now, and they're 4-2. But if you start getting into those tight games later on this year, games with bigger implications on the line, you can't play this undisciplined and win. It's going to come back to bite them in the ass. They've got to clean it up.
Yeah, and coming into today, through their first 5 games, the Patriots had 43 penalties against them, which was the 3rd most in the NFL. They had 11 more today. By the end of this weekend, they very well could be number 1. And again, it's like, I think the way you put it is great. They've gotten away with it now. And I know Mike Vrabel has said, he said on WEEI a few weeks ago that, well, penalties aren't always an indicator of who wins. And some of the penalties, like if you're fighting for a ball and a call goes against you, like I get some of that, right? I really do. But then some of it, like the false starts, is things like that. Like there's way too many of those types of penalties. And Carlton Davis, like him a lot, he has a habit of getting called for holdings or illegal contacts. And again, I think he's a good player, but it's something he's got to clean up. So it's what worries me, John, is not right now. It worries me that, when they play Baltimore later this year, like a Baltimore team that's really talented, but has injuries and not playing well, like maybe that's a spot the Patriots are going to have a close game and a penalty is going to cost them, or one of their other games later this year, they're going to lose a game, maybe even to a team that's more talented than them, because they commit an ill-timed penalty.
Lauren Gaudette checks back in. I always get worried when any team wins ugly against bad teams. The Patriots team discipline in many places is still lacking. That second half, the penalties and the inability to get off the field, both offenses were similar on the stat sheet. Yeah, offensively, it was an ugly second half. I mean, the Patriots played really well offensively in the first half. The second half was certainly one to forget. But going back to the penalties, look, good teams can overcome penalties, okay? But when you're a mediocre team or a bad team, you can't. Now, they're a developing team. They're a good team, but I'm not sure I would call them a great team yet. And I certainly wouldn't say that they're a team that can overcome it. I really believe that if this trend continues, eventually it's going to catch up with them. It's going to cost them a game. And look, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Vrabel. I think he's a terrific coach. I think he's done a great job here. I think he's the guy that's going to get this thing back on track to where the Patriots are going to be a perennial playoff team and Super Bowl contender. But you can say that to other people at WEI. Don't say it to you. Don't say it to me, because we've coached, and with all due respect to other members of the media who haven't coached, we know what happens when you're undisciplined. You get burned. It costs you games. It's bad. And people will say, well, you don't need to be a coach to know that. I understand that. But we've actually had to pay the price for our team playing undisciplined. We know how it feels on the inside. And that's what sucks. They have to clean it up. There's no excuse. You can't make excuses, in my opinion. Vrabel has to own this. This is the biggest blemish, in my opinion, with this football team right now.
And I'll give you 2 tangible instances where I think it really hurt them today. One, and we kind of touched on it earlier, they have 1st and goal at the 2, right? It gets blown up. And then next thing you know, because of a penalty, or it's third and goal at the 9. And maybe instead of third and goal at the 9, if it's third and goal at the 4, that's a much easier play call. So it might have taken some points off the board there. And then the other one, we talked about this as well, but fourth quarter, right? It's 2nd and 7. You get a Matt Collins catch and run for 8 yards. You get the illegal shift penalty, which I think was a BS call, but technically Stevenson was moving, but still but then right after that, okay, hey, it's what, 3rd and 12, which stinks. But then you get a Morgan Moses penalty, and now it's 3rd and 17.
Which was brutal, by the way. That's a guy that's played 10,000 snaps in this league. And in that situation, they're late running a guy on. That's the other issue. They should have been called for 12 men on the field. They weren't. They run a guy on late. He's going to line up, and he moves? Like, what the hell are you doing, man? That one, I almost blew my stack. It's like, cut the shit. You're 34, 35 years old. You're a veteran player in this league. Hold your water. You can't be the guy that false starts there. If the guy that's running in on defense lines up and he jumps off sides, that makes sense. He panicked. He thought the ball was going to be snapped, whatever the case might be. If anything, you should capitalize on that situation. No. Instead, your veteran right tackle who's played 10,000 snaps in this league decides, now it's a good time for me to flinch. It's frustrating.
And they didn't stop there, right? So it's 3rd and 17. Then you get the OPI on Diggs. So it's 3rd and 27. Then you have the incomplete, which should have been called again on Matt Collins. I'm not excusing the refs here. But my point is, you go from a first down conversion to 4th and 27 in your punting. Right. That's the problem, right? See, that's the tangible thing. And again, I just think
can get away with that against the Saints, but you won't later on this year.
You're not going to get away with that when you play the Bills again later this year. And if you get a healthy Ravens team, like I mentioned before, you're not going to get away. You might not get away with that against the Falcons. What if you catch the Falcons on one of their random good days because they've been all over the place this year? You're not going to get away with it against some of those teams. So that's the thing. To the commenters, I think it was Lauren that commented, the win ugly thing against a bad team. You win, you feel good, it's on the road, but you walk away from this saying almost like you got away with one to an extent. May was terrific. The pass offense was amazing, but given your running game, the penalties, the inconsistencies on defense, you got away with one a little bit today.
Yeah, some other underlying numbers here. Patriots did not turn the ball over, which is good. They had 333 yards of total offense.
Can I add one thing on that?
Go ahead.
Patriots have won 4 games. Not a coincidence. Those are the 4 games that Drake May has not thrown an interception. They've lost 2 games. He's thrown interceptions at both. You and I spent 6 months talking about it all off season. The biggest thing with May this year, it wasn't yards, it wasn't touchdowns. It was, can he limit the turnovers, especially the backbreaking ones, and he has this year. And I would argue, John, that might be the single biggest reason this team is 4-2. If you had to list the reasons why, that might be reason number 1, that he's limited 100%. The turnovers.
Yep, 100%. And to your point, we were beating that drum all off season. And again, it's not a credit thing or that we were onto something that no one else was onto. We just know, and we saw it last year. He had a good rookie year when they finally inserted him into the lineup. But it wasn't a mystery. His biggest issue was taking care of the football. So it wasn't a mystery going into the offseason that if Josh McDaniels was going to tap into that enormous potential that May has, the best way to do it is to teach him to make good decisions and take care of the ball. It appears that he's doing that now. He's playing within the system. He's executing the game plan. He's not trying to force sand up a flea's ass and make plays when they're not there. He's doing what he's supposed to. I like how you rolled your eyes there. You have no idea what I'm talking about there. That's an old John Gruden.
No, the only person that I've ever heard say that before is you, last year during one of our post-game shows. So I have heard it before. But to your point, you look at some of the games they lost, and look, they were poorly coached last year. They were not talented. If you don't throw an end zone interception and have a backwards pass fiasco, maybe you beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo last year, right? If you don't throw a couple bad picks against the Titans last year, maybe you win that game. Those are the things that, again, when they've won this year, they haven't done. And by the way, I thought Drake May in the pocket today, we haven't mentioned that. I thought he was tremendous in the pocket today. Stepping up, seeing the field.
Better.
Yeah, that you want to talk about something that I think has come forward light years since training camp 2024. His feel in the pocket and his keeping his eyes downfield, that has come a huge, huge way since just really even this time a year ago.
So as I mentioned, 6 of 13 on third down, 1 of 2 on fourth down, and they won the time of possession battle 31-44 to 28-16. So when you look at all the underlying offensive numbers that you need to have an advantage in order to win a game, they did that today. But again, you won ugly against a bad team. It is what it is. Look, one thing I will caution people to do here is to not get caught up in how they won. It's the National Football League. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is that you won. There's no style points here. You don't get extra credit for winning a certain way. The bottom line is a win is a win. It doesn't matter how they do it. And this is a league where winning ugly matters because at the end of the day, it shows that you can win close games. So I think that that's the important thing here. And when you look at the Saints team, yes, they're 1-5, but there's still some really talented players on this team. Kamara, Jordan, Shaheed, Olave, their offensive line. I mean, let's be honest, their offensive line, you probably would take them over the Patriots right now, realistically speaking. Will Campbell has a ton of potential at left tackle, Jared Wilson, ton of potential at left guard, but that's a pretty good group. Right now, I'd say Banks and Campbell are even, if nothing else. So my point is, that's a good football team. Their record may not reflect it. They don't have a quarterback. They're not great on defense, but a win is a win. To go into that environment to beat this football team, and they played well. You got to tip your hat to them. But to go into that environment, beat this football team that still has some good veterans, and get a win the way they did, I don't want to hear any complaining about how they won. The bottom line is they won, and they're 4-2, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean there aren't things that they need to fix going forward, as we kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
But I'm curious your thoughts, John, on Spencer Rattler, because we talked about him before he came out in the draft, and I thought he was a totally different guy at South Carolina than the guy who'd been at Oklahoma. Much, much better player. And I know the Saints have been bad, and he lost the first 10 starts or whatever it is, but watching him today, and again, I don't think the Patriots defense played well, but I also thought he played well, and that was a big part of this too. Like, I don't know, like, I know people talk about the Saints and like, oh, tank for Arch Manning, Archie's grandson, all this stuff, whatever, whatever. I don't want to go too far here, but I've been impressed by Spencer Rattler. Like, I think he might actually be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
20 of 26, 227, no touchdown passes, no interceptions, passer rating of 102.6. Here's what I think of Spencer Rattler. He's good enough to keep you in games. He's not good enough to win you games.
Fair enough.
Period. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think he's a fringe starter in this league. I could see him having a long career as a backup spot starter. But if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I don't believe he's the long-term answer there. And look, part of it is he's 6 feet, 210 pounds. He throws a nice ball. He's accurate. He can move around in the pocket and reset the pocket and create opportunities for his receivers down the field. And he's good enough to occasionally, I should say, break, contain, extend plays and hit a guy on a scramble drill. But in my opinion, I've never been a Spencer Rattler guy. I know he was the number 1 recruit in the country in 2019. I've never bought the hype. I do think size matters in this league. If you don't think it does, go back to the play Drake May made last week when he was about to hit the ground and he threw it to Diggs for a key catch and a first down to extend that drive. That's what size and strength means at the quarterback position. Guy like Rattler doesn't have it. I think he's got a good arm. I don't think he has a great arm. I think he has enough skill to survive in this league. But if you're an organization that wants to take the next step and win games and be a Super Bowl contender, that guy can't be your quarterback. Again, I think he's good enough to keep you in games, but he's not going to win you games.
Yeah, and I guess it's a fair evaluate because so far he's kept them in a lot of games and they have won win.
He has.
So,
he has. Yeah, and for all we know, listen, he could end up being one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in that class. I mean, let's face it. Right now it's Drake. It's Daniels. Williams is playing well, but he hasn't had the Mahomes-esque impact that
we have questions about him anyway.
Right, but we have a lot of question marks about Penix. We have a lot of question marks about McCarthy. Bo Nix has been pretty good. Can he continue being as good as he's been? He hasn't been as good this year so far as he was last year. How much of that is also Peyton in that system? So those guys have some question marks. Rattler is in that neighborhood, in my opinion. I think those guys are better, and those guys can develop into not necessarily franchise quarterbacks, but good quarterbacks. But I think with Rattler, I think he is what he is. He's going to compete. He's going to make some plays. He's going to run the offense. He's smart. He's going to execute when he needs to. But is he good enough to elevate the play of the guys around him? Remember the conversation we were having about Mac Jones. Why didn't we think Mac Jones could ever become a franchise quarterback here? Because he needed elite level talent around him in order for him to excel, or the system needed to be built around him. He didn't get that here. He didn't make it here. He's getting it in San Francisco, but he didn't have it here. And he doesn't have elite level talent in San Francisco. They're banged up, but the system plays to his strengths. And so I think that's the difference with a guy like that. He can't make people – I'll say this, John, and I know you know this as well. If your quarterback can't make his teammates better, he's not an elite level franchise quarterback.
And I think we've seen that with May and Kayshon Boutte specifically. Like we opened the show talking about the growth Kayshon Boutte has had this year, and I think May's been a big part of it. How about last week against Buffalo? That cover 2 hole shot, which is arguably the biggest throw of the game on that late drive, was at that right after the 2-minute warning. I think it was the first play out of it. I mean, that was a huge throw and catch. And then today, who does he throw to end the game down the sideline? Kayshon Boutte. And I think that May has done a really good job putting the ball only where Kayshon Boutte can catch it at times. And it hasn't just been to Kayshon Boutte, but that connection specifically has stood out to me, where it feels like May will put the ball only where Kayshon Boutte can get it, and then Boutte's bringing in those catches and having big games and getting making big catches in key moments. And I think that's a great example of it right there. And the Saints are interesting too. And I know we're not doing Saints Pulse here, but I've just noticed this.
This has morphed into the Saints Pulse post-game show.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've just noticed it as
with the old host, Jones and Needles and his own lions.
They have a lot of guys whose names but who aren't the same. Like Alvin Kamara is not the same guy he used to be.
No.
Brandon Cooks is not the same guy that he used to be. Taysom Hill
I still, every time I look at Cooks on my TV screen, I still think about the Super Bowl when he got knocked out of the game. Thanks for coming. He spent a year here and then he was gone.
Yeah, I did like him with the Patriots, but yeah, that was a tough moment. But even like Taysom Hill is not the game changer that he used to be. Like a lot of these guys, like Demario Davis is legitimate.
By the way, that was really bad defense on Hill's touchdown. They had nobody in the middle of the front.
Yeah.
They motion. They pull the guy away. They give them a soft edge, and he scores on a quarterback stretch.
And they created
Saints created coaching there.
And the Saints created, and the Saints were able to create this like awkward 2-on-1 where you have a defensive end in between a pass catcher and a running quarterback. And it's like, I felt bad. I think it might've been Tonga out there, but whoever it was, like, I felt bad for the guy out there because it's like, you should not be in this position at all. Like it was tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And next week, they're going to see another quarterback who I think is in the same category as Rattler and Cam Ward, where he's good enough to keep you in games, but I don't think he's good enough to win you games consistently. I don't see franchise quarterback with him either. Of course, the Tennessee Titans are even worse than the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are still competitive despite their record. Callahan is struggling there. He can't get them going. Cam Ward, it's way too early to tell what he's going to be, but the early returns have not been very good. That's an organization that a couple of years ago, if you remember, spent a lot of money in free agency after they jettisoned Mike Vrabel, but those moves haven't paid off. They're a team that has some veteran talent too, guys that have been around. They've got some talent along their front seven. But look, let's not mince words here. If the Patriots are who we think they are, you got to go down there and win that game next week. And I know Mike Vrabel, and you know Mike Vrabel. He's going to be asked about the revenge factor and what it means to him to return to Tennessee after being fired. He doesn't give two shits about that. He's not going to indulge people with that conversation. He's not going to get into it. And quite frankly, I think if anybody asks him about it, I think it's foolish. But he's going to get asked about it, so it is what it is. At the end of the day, if the Patriots are who we think they are, you got to go down there next week and win by 2 or 3 scores. You've got to flex your muscle against that team because right now they're down. You want to keep them there, and you want to kick them while they're down and send a message. So that's a game that, to me, if they go down there next week and win 20-16, that's a red flag, John. That's concerning. That team is awful. Keep them where they belong, which is being awful.
Yeah, and I would add in, like today, I thought Drake May played his best game as a Patriot. Week 2 against Miami, he was also terrific. Last week, he was great. But I think on the whole, Drake May had his best game as a Patriot if you include in those throws that were, called back due to penalty, which was not his fault. Last year, when they played the Titans, I thought that was Drake May's worst game as a Patriot. He had that really bad interception early where he got totally fooled. He had a strip sack fumble where he held onto the ball way too long. A bad decision in throwing overtime to intercept for an interception to end the game. So it's been a pretty big juxtaposition between that game last year and now. Can he follow up this game by going back there and play really, really well? Even if he doesn't play quite as elite as he did today, can he play really well throughout that game? Because I agree with you. That's a Titans team that's a really bad team. They picked number 1 overall for a reason. They're not much better than they were a year ago. You should be able to win that game by 2 touchdowns, even though it's back-to-back road games, 3 road games overall in a row, including the Buffalo one. You should be able to win that game by 2 touchdowns at least. And I think I would agree. Like if they win that game close, I'm going to be a little frustrated. And it's funny because last year we were just hoping they could win a 5th game. Right. Now we're talking about if they don't win
again.
Yeah. Now if they can't win their 5th game, it's too close. It's a problem. But I think again,
Lions, I want to talk about this. They need to cut the crap.
Yeah, cover the spread. But like what I'd say, like I think we've mentioned this about 6,000 times in the last 3 weeks. But if they're going to be the team that they're building towards, that's what you should do next week. You should go there and you should win by 2 touchdowns. And for God's sakes, can you run the ball somewhat effectively? Please?
That'll be a good game to get the run game going again.
Like today should have been a good game to get the run game going, and they couldn't do it. Nope. And can you go down there and run the ball? Can you throw a screen pass that gains significant yardage? Please, one time. Like that's the things I'm looking for. Can your defense not get carved up on the first 2 possessions? Can you come out and force a couple punts?
Look, if they get carved up next week, Houston, we've got a problem.
Yeah, but that's saying no. But I'm saying even in those first 2 possessions, right? Can you come out and force a couple punts? Instead of like Pittsburgh, where you give up 2 early touchdowns and then dominate the rest of the game. Can you come out and just play well from the beginning this time?
And I think those are 2 things to watch next week. Defense, play better out of the gate. Find a way to run the football and try to start the process of getting that running game back on track. But nonetheless, like I said, that's a team that you're better than. You want to keep them where they are. You want to kick them when they're down. They got to go down there next week and take care of business. And again, I know the focal point all week is going to be the return of Mike Vrabel. They fired him. Revenge game. Vrabel's not going to entertain that nonsense, nor should he. And that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be taking care of business against a team you're better than and getting to 5-2. And by the way, there is some history on the line next week. If the Patriots do go down there and win that game, it'll be the first time in franchise history that they've won 3 consecutive road games. They've never done it in their franchise history.
Wow.
And that they have gone 2-1 a bunch of times when they've had 3 consecutive road games. I believe they've had 3 consecutive road games on their schedule 13 times in their history. I think 9 of those times they've gone 2-1. And I think the other 4 times they went 1-2, but they've never won 3 in a row. So they could make some history next week. Yeah. And again, now they're trending. Yeah. They're trending in that direction now where they could potentially be Houston of 2 years ago, Washington of last year. They have that look about them. Maybe they could be this year's version of those 2 teams. We'll see. Nonetheless, a win is a win. They got it done. And, John, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's plenty that they need to work on. So you win, but you also have a lot there for the coaches to bitch at the players about the next couple of days. So that's always a good thing. A win and fixing problems is actually something you want as a coach. Certainly Mike Vrabel and his staff will have plenty to fix, but they're 4-2, and that's all that matters. That will do it for this episode of the Patriots Pulse post-game show. For my partner, John Lyons, I'm John Sirenitas. We will be back with you next week after the Patriots-Titans game. Until then, have a good week. Be happy. Be safe. Peace.